fishing, loving every day. That's a prayer that a country boy prays. Thank God he made me this way. Hunting, fishing, loving every day.
Welcome to another episode of Walleyes and Adventure throughout the Grape region.
Today we're here with Jim Ahonen. He's from Detroit, grew up fishing the Detroit River along with his dad. Taught him lots. His dad also grew up there and spent lots of time fishing the river. So he's got a lot of knowledge on the Detroit River. If you've never fished or heard anything about the Detroit River, it's I think it's 28 miles long and something like the max depth is 50 feet, and you got a current in the river between 2.3 and 3 miles an hour. So it's a different fishery than what most guys have fished, and it's a really cool bite. I've been out there a couple times with Jim, and so welcome, Jim.
Hey, thanks for having me on your podcast, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing all right. I see spring's kind of coming along when it wants to.
Yeah. So you just told me you were out fishing yesterday. The bite's just starting to happen over there?
Yeah, it's starting to happen. I'm even hearing just a little bit. The spawn's just starting. But yeah, it's starting to go here. Once it cuts loose, it's gonna be game on. So.
Yeah. So what's the when's this bite you typically happen over there?
Probably around ice out till about could even go all the way to the middle of June, in instances like that. I think with the best water temp being probably in the 40s, low to mid 40s, and then anywhere in between when once the river gets loaded too, there's a ton of fish.
Yeah. So it's you're basically talking prime spawning season. The walleyes are actually coming up into the river to spawn. So typically the walleye spawn 42 to the high 40 somewhere in there. So you're talking main spawn. So we're in the beginning of April right now. Ice has only been out a few weeks now. So yeah, it's like right on target for them to be starting to come in there.
Yeah. Yeah, need a little bit of, I'd say the warm weather to kind of stick around a little bit more here, but I don't know, they're gonna come in regardless here. They're really staging, so.
Yeah. So how deep are you typically fishing for these walleyes in the river? What's the normal stuff where you usually target and fish?
Yeah, probably anywhere between, I don't know, maybe 12 to maybe 30 feet in between there.
Okay. All right. I mean, they probably could be almost anywhere in the river, but the average is typically in the, I know when I was out there, we were fishing a lot of 15, 20 foot of water there. So I've been out there, I would say, 3-4 times fishing with you, a couple times for a tournament. Since most guys are going to come from, like, say, here, near where I live, Erie, Pennsylvania, most guys that come out there, they're going to want to do the jig bite. And I think there's a lot of ways to catch walleyes out there, from trolling to hand lining. It's a whole different technique of things, but most guys are going to want to do that jig bite, rod in hand. So what kind of jigs do you use out there?
Typically I usually fish 1 ounce jigs. Pretty simple setup, maybe like a medium sized reel. Nothing too crazy, and a decent with some feel between maybe 5 to 7 feet in between there. Medium light action, something with a little bit of sensitivity. You can get away with that, and I guess that and plastics for bait. I don't know. I know the price of minnows are up. But, once in a while, I'll tip with minnows too, but you don't have to.
I know when I was out there, I fished typically most of the time 1 ounce jigs, and but I did fish that would be 1 ounce jigs with the plastic on it, but I did fish a lot of 3/4 ounce hair jigs. Seem to be working pretty good out there too. But I know, like, for some people, you might need to go to 1.5 ounces, ounce and a quarter to be able to feel it. If it's really fast and you're really deep, you might want something a little heavy. heavier, but it's extremely different than anything you've ever done in like shallow water in a lake where you're under 15 feet deep. You can get away with casting 1/8 ounce jigs out there. It's a whole different program. You're probably never going to use anything much less than maybe a 5/8 ounce jig. You mentioned the line you use. What definitely got to have some braid. What's your preferred line?
It really doesn't matter much. Fireline's good. Power Pro's got their set too. So I don't know. Well, just you want as less slack as possible, and you want I tie direct. Some guys use leaders, but it doesn't matter if you use a leader much. Some guys maybe use it for the visuality, but I think the fish kind of they ambush their prey, so it's not kind of finesse fishing. They're going to come in and they're gonna hit your stuff, and they don't have time to look at it. So it's like they see it, they think it's food, and they come in and they're gonna. I don't know if you guys like tying direct, that's fine. But if you're fishing maybe more snaggy areas, then maybe get into using a fluorocarbon leader, and that way.
I know when I was out there with you, you were running, I believe, if I remember, a 10-pound test high vis Power Pro, yellow Power Pro, and I ran, I want to say it was 6 or 8, maybe 8-pound test Power Pro high vis also, and you tied direct. I used a short length of fluorocarbon leader. I kind of like the fluorocarbon just because it gives you a section of line that's a little bit stiff and less likely for that jig to ball up, and then if you do break off, it's a little easier to break it off versus
might be a little
break that
heavy. Yeah, I'd stick between 6 pound. I don't know. You can go maybe 10-pound test with that stuff, but anything higher than that's probably overkill. You'll be breaking hooks instead of the line. So
yeah. Just specifically on jigs, I know you like to use some specialty jigs. I know round ball jigs work fine. I mean, they might have a little more drag in the water. What kind of actual jig do you prefer?
Angler's Quest makes a jig, and it's more of a flat profile where it's more water resistant, and it seems to how do I want to say it seems to give you a lot less resistance in the water when you're jigging, because you're out there all day. It can help with not only wear and tear on you, but better hook sets, I think, and better hookups. You get that bump. You're gonna want to be able to set that hook right away, and that's just and I use round balls too. I can make my own molds, but these are from Angler's Quest. They're called Walleye Gator jigs, and they're kind of a flat style jig. There's all kinds of different styles out there, but these are like the flattest ones that I could find, and it seemed to work the best for me, and I really like their product from them. They're really good.
Yeah, the big key to fishing the Detroit River is just trying to keep vertical. You want your jig going straight up and down, so the more aerodynamic or hydrodynamic that jig is, it'll cut through the water, the less resistance and less blowback you're going to get. You're going to be traveling downstream 1.5, 2 miles an hour, so you got to have that very hydrodynamic rig, line and everything, so it slides to the water easy. That's key out there to keep vertical. What's your preferred plastics?
I use a lot of the color patterns from like Lure Lipstick came out with their stuff. They have a ton of scented plastics, all different kind of color. I know bait stores around here, they carry all these different types of plastic. Finesse minnows are probably your standard, but I'll also go to they call them a why not worm, and it's about a 4-inch worm. And different companies even make different styles of those too, but both those work particularly well, and even early or late in the season, even those seem to work the best. And I'm sure we can give them some bait stores later on in the program. So
those finesse minnows, they look pretty much like a fluke minnow. They're just a minnow shaped bait.
Yep.
No real paddle tail or curly tail or anything like that on. They're just a real straight, simplistic looking bait. Yeah,
Yep.
and I think that was probably the standard out there. The go-to for many guys out there. From what I saw.
Yeah, for most likely, for sure. And you
Yeah.
mentioned, the hair jigs and stuff like that. That's probably a good way to bulk up maybe your presentation a little bit too, I would think,
So, yeah, yeah. What like Jim mentioned that you're cruising down the river and those jigging along. Those fish are they're hugging the bottom, and you got to stay right on the bottom. But if you think of how, your cadence, you're lifting that jig up and down and bouncing it down the bottom, going 2 miles an hour. That fish is only going to see that thing maybe one or two bounces, and that's it, and it's gone. It's past them, and they're really not going to probably chase it up and down the river. So you want something they can see pretty well, and it's not a finesse type presentation. You're going to either whack it on the way by or it's gone. So another big key to that is using stinger hooks. You want to explain to them what a stinger hook is and where you hook it on your bait?
The stinger hook style I like to use is mine will go off my hook. So if you put your finesse on your plastic presentation, mine will go over the hook and then right on that. And usually on the particular jigs I use, the hook is more of I guess a sickle hook, if that makes sense to you guys. It'll have a kind of more of a bend in the middle of that hook, and that treble hook and the stinger hook will be on a kind of off a piece of monofilament or wire. And usually I like to use size 10s treble hook, and it's an extra hook for when they come in and they miss that bait. You have an extra way to get that fish. They're almost all season. I would say I say they're mandatory, but you don't necessarily need them. But it's a good go-to to have. Spend the extra money and I'd say buy them. Especially early in the year like this.
Yeah, I would say stinger hooks are almost a must. From what I saw, is the majority of the fish were actually caught on those stinger hooks.
Yeah,
You
they're missing the
you
bait quite often.
yeah.
So they'll come in and kind of hit it short once in a while, and it's like, oh wait, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, now I got them on. So yeah, they definitely help your hookup percentage for sure.
Do you put like one of the hooks into the plastic, or you just let it free hang?
Now that's to me is going to depend on if you get into more rocky stuff like the Trenton Channel in the river, it's a lot more snags there, a lot more rock down there. Or if I get into a condition where there's different type of slimy areas, and you want to keep that stuff off your stinger hook because it can grab a lot of that, and you can put particles on that. You can put that in the back of your finesse to kind of keep it in place. But normally, I like to keep it free hanging. Again, it'll go up and down with your jig. And sometimes it'll get hung up on your line a little bit more. Depends on your style of jigging too. But it still, if you do put it in your plastic, it probably won't hang up as much. But for more hookup percentage, I let it free hang.
Now for some hot tips from our sponsor, Mike's Walleye Rigs.
Hey, Mike here with Mike's Walleye Rigs. Hey, just wanted to give you a little tip on these jigs for the Detroit River. This jig and setup just happens to be the jig that I used the first time I went out and fished with Jim out in the river. And this is a 1 ounce jig. You can see you got that flat profile that helps it cut through the water a little better. And it's got a stinger hook on it. And this style of soft plastic, we just see guys using a lot out there. This is a lure lipstick finesse minnow. The hook on these things, this is a 5/8 ounce round ball jig. So it's a little bit lighter than you'd probably be using out there. But you can see the hook on that's that sickle style hook that most of those baits will have out there. It's a good hook for out there. Big wide gap, so you can get the hook buried in them fish real easy. So I wanted to show you how to, those stinger hooks are real simple to tie. You can buy them out there. Lots of people have them, but if you want to tie your own, it's pretty easy to do. You just, this is just a 2x4 and a couple finish nails, and the finish nails are driven in 3 inches apart. And you take a treble hook and number 8s to number 10 treble hooks. A lot of times I use the red hooks. This actually is a number 6 hook I'm using just to try to make it a little easier to see. So what you do is you take these really fine little leader sleeves. They're probably really hard to see on here, but this is basically a little barrel. I tied a piece of 12-pound test. This is a monofilament. You can use fluorocarbon also. So you just take that little tube, little leader crimp. You're not going to crimp these on. So you're going to feed it on once, and then you're going to turn around and go right back through the same way. And these are really, really tiny, so that the line just barely fits through there, twice through it. These are actually, I buy these sleeves at Hagen's, and the number on them is 421010. Again, Hagen's Fishing, and it's 421010 is the product number on those. So now you have the hook and the sleeve over it, like so. I think maybe now you can see that behind. You got a loop there. So you're going to take that loop, you're going to put the hook on the one finish nail, and you're going to put the loop over the other one, and you're going to pull it up, and then you're going to slide that crimp up tight to it. Lift this up a little bit so you can see it a little better, like so. Once you got that on there like that, there's basically nothing holding that thing on there. So what you're going to do on your free tag end, just tie an overhand knot, just a simple overhand knot, and you're going to tease that knot right down to that crimp sleeve. Get another nail, or I'm using these needle nose pliers, and you slide it down there, and you're going to pull that tight. And then you're going to trim off the tag below that little knot. Then you unhook it from the nail, and you can work these back down, work that sleeve back down, and it'll open that loop back up. Then when you want to go put it on your rig, then you'd have your plastic on there, but then you just hook that right over your hook, and then slide that little sleeve down, and there you got your stinger hook on the back of your hook. These things can also be used on other things too, if you're, besides just the river, or if you're fishing where finicky fish on inland lakes or what have you. They do work good way to tie them. But that hook's a little bit big. But so that's Mike with Mike's Walleye Rigs. Let's talk about rods and reels. I know when I came out there to fish the tournament, I actually bought a rod specifically for that area. It was a 5'6" St. Croix. I want to say it was a medium action graphite rod, really nice rod for that, and it worked well. But I know on my previous trips out there, I fished like my medium action lightning rod that I bought back in the 80s, and it worked too. What's your preferred rod? What do you think you got to have for a rod out there?
Probably anything from, let's just say, 5 foot. My one buddy uses all the time. He's a bass walleye guy all around, but he likes it 5 foot medium rod. I like anything from 6'3", 6'6". I know my dad, he once in a while, he likes a 6'6" too, medium action. sometimes he'll switch to a 7-foot medium action light tip also. So I don't know, anything in between there. You're going to definitely want some finesse in that rod to where you can feel the bite. I guess they're going to just kind of come in and thump it. A lot of times you won't even feel even with a good rod. So it happens. But
Definitely
simple.
want a graphite rod, something that can really telescope that feel up through it.
You're gonna want to feel the bottom real well too. That's a key. That bait's got to stay on the bottom. You're gonna want to stay 6 inches from the bottom at all times. And a good rod is key to that. That's why I use a heavier jig. So a lot of guys are using different size jigs that way, but you guys coming out here for your first time, don't shy away from that aspect. Is a heavier jig like that. It's not finesse. They're gonna hit it.
Yeah.
Believe me.
I know Chris, one of Jim's buddies, when I was out there fishing with him the first time, he told me, if you're setting up for that, don't go for a big reel. Go for that 200 or 2000 series reel or smaller, because all you need is to hold the line, and you're going to use braids, so you're not worried about the coils and stuff that you would be for casts, and you're just opening that bail up and sending it down to the bottom. The lighter it is, the less fatigue you'll have. You're going to be holding that rod in your hand, jigging that, for hours, and you really can't set it down or do anything to take a break. So having a nice, really light setup is really helpful. They're almost like pool cues out there. They're stiff, and you got a fast tip on them the tip will bend, but most of the rod is pretty rigid. When I was fishing fishing with the hair jigs, I was running a Fenwick rod. I want to say it was a 6'6" medium action. And you could tell the difference. It was heavier, but run a little lighter jig made a difference. But you could get away with a lot of different things. But you definitely want that high graphite rod, and maybe one of your older rods. It's a glass rod. Might not be the best thing for that. You might want to make sure you have something a little bit more modern with high composite graphite rod. So now we talked about rods and reels and jigs, and so where are we going to find these fish at, Jim? Go ahead, give us some waypoints, where to go. Where some of your hot spots, where to go.
Especially this time of year, you'll see boats fishing everywhere. And outs of it, really, there's going to be pretty much boats on all the spots for the most part. And don't be afraid to just try it. Get right in there, and
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of community holes out there, and there's a lot of boats. It's no secret where the fish are at. It's kind of a like redneck boat party out there sometimes too. You're out there, you're drifting along, or say you're fishing maybe a quarter-mile stretch of the river, floating it and drifting it. You'll drift down through it, and then you'll run back up the top end of the hole, and there's going to be a guy running right behind you, and he's going to set up 20, 30 yards apart, and you might drift that whole drift for the next half hour as you're going down through there. You can literally talk to the boat next to you the whole ways while you're jigging. It's kind of a neat thing. If you've never did it, it's not like going into northern Ontario and where you're not going to see a boat all day. You're going to see hundreds of boats over there. I wouldn't be scared of that. It's just a different way of fishing than what a lot of guys have done before.
Yeah, definitely trolling motor is a must.
Yeah, let's talk about the boat. Let's talk about what kind of boat do you run?
Run an older Ranger, 620. And you don't have to be all that fancy, but my dad, he's got a 14-foot boat, deep V with a 25 horse on it. So I mean, there's all kind of variety of boats. There's pontoon boats out there. There's there's everything. But make sure still that you're seaworthy though. It can be a dangerous place too if you fall in, or cold water, different things like that. When you're going back up on your spots, I guess maybe kind of getting off the hook a little bit. If you're going back up on those spots where the fish are at, don't motor over the top of them. Come out and around the pack of boats. Be courteous. Don't throw a wake. And then kind of circle in there. So you know, a lot of people just want to run right through the pack of boats, and it's like, you know, what's the point of that? You know, you knock somebody out of the boat standing there, or somebody, you know, be curious, or courtesy to everybody out there, you know. But
Yeah.
you know,
So whose boats caught more fish? Your dad's 14-foot Muracraft or your 20-foot Ranger?
their Millcrafts caught a lot of fish. I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
it's
I,
around.
yeah, I remember when I was a kid, you know, it was probably back in, I was in, you know, probably grade school. I remember my buddy's granddad had a Muracraft, just like your dad's. And so that boat's been around for a while. You know, what, early 80s, late 70s, somewhere in there. But I know your dad has an electric motor on the stern of that. And then obviously your Ranger, you got a, you know, electric motor up front. That I would say is, you know, having a decent electric motor on your boat and being able to control your boat is crucial there. That boat control is everything. It's obvious you're going to be going downstream, but if, you know, maybe 1.5 miles an hour or something like that, but you can actually get situations where the wind's blowing upstream and the current's going downstream, and
Oh yeah.
you know, your boat's not really wanting to go with the stream, and you pretty much always have to be kind of pulling with the current to keep your line vertical. So give me some tricks. What's some tricks you have to try to keep that line vertical in your boat control?
Follow your line, 100%. If that current's coming down the way it's coming down, and then you got the wind blowing another direction, you're gonna almost be off on an angle. You're gonna kind of be zigzagging in a way, but your boat will actually stay pretty close on a straight drift for say down the river. You
So
know.
if basically you're using your lines almost like a plumb bob,
Yep.
so you're gonna kind of keep aiming that trolling motor towards that, you know, whichever direction that line's going to try to keep things vertical, right?
Yep. Try not to run it
Yeah.
over where it's under the boat so much. Try not to be on hardly any of an angle. You're gonna miss too many fish, or you're just not bottom right. And
Yeah.
right. You know,
Yeah.
you're almost out of the game. You got to be right on top of it, and you gotta watch which way you're going. You know, and like you were saying too. There's all the boats around as well. A lot of them are gonna be doing the same, but you don't want to run into anybody either.
Yeah.
So kind of be on your game and get a little proficient with your motor before coming out, I would say.
Yeah, one of the things is like if you're struggling, everybody's struggling out there and everybody's getting hit with the same wind, so everybody's kind of getting bounced around the same way. It's not like running through a pack of, you know, high-speed boats or anything, but you do got to pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, the trolling motor is going to be key. Make sure you guys come here if you're going to make a trip. Make sure your batteries are good because you're going to be on it all the time. You know, some guys use your key fob, some guys use your foot pedal, some guys, you know, got tiller. It's not going to matter that much, but make sure you're good and charged up, and you got decent batteries for what you got.
Do you put your motor on constant on, or do you toggle it on and off?
Toggle it. I think toggling it to me, I don't know. Maybe more experienced guys can do that too. If you have it on constant, I mean, you're looking one way, and you're shooting it. And now could be heading towards a boat. You're messing with something else, and now you're off drift, or you're gonna run into somebody or something. You got to pay attention. You know, kind of on and off as you go. I'd say you could do the constant, but you got to be watching all the time. I mean, when I'm out of the water, a lot of times I got guys helping me get my bait back so they can get so they can keep staying vertical as I go along, as they're remessing with my hook or what I've got going on, just so I can stay and keep them vertical as they go along. If that makes sense.
I know the first time I went out there, Chris gave me some pointers, and he said, you know, whenever Jim's out of the water, everybody's out of the water, because that guy running that trolling motor, he's busy and trying to keep everybody fishing. So, and there again, like if he gets a fish or nets, you know, you net his fish, get it out of there, and let him stay on that trolling motor, so everybody can keep fishing. I'd also say, your first time there, you're going to want to take somebody with you, and a good idea that everybody in the boat knows how to run everything in the boat. Everybody knows how to run the electric trolling motor, and everybody knows how to run the big motors, because a lot of times when you get snagged up, you'll actually fire the big motor up and, back yourself back up to the point where you can get those snags, pull them snags out. It's actually amazing how many of those snags you do get back. And it's actually amazing how many snags there are in the bottom of that river. There's everything in there. There's hundreds of years worth of fishing line stuck in the bottom of that river, and it's deep and rocky and debris and cars and everything else down there. So it's definitely different.
Yeah, I think a few years ago or something, they pulled out like an old Model T or something, or like when they were running booze out there. It's like across the ice. They used to run the bootleg stuff, but
let's talk a little bit about the the jigging itself. There's every day is different out there, and the fish kind of want to see a different thing. Like, so what kind of cadences and stuff do you use out there? That seems to be a big thing. A lot of times one guy can get them and one of the other guys can't, and you got to kind of try to match up what the other guys are doing and, figure out what kind of cadence that those fish want to see. What's some of the things you do?
Different techniques on how to jig kind of out the bottom. You got to see what they want. A lot of times I'll snap jig it off the bottom, or if they don't want it as a snap at the time, then you can really just bounce it real slow or just a little bit off the bottom. Some guys even I've had it where I can just hold it there, but you're going to still want to keep in constant contact with the bottom though. I mean, you can lift up, hit the bottom, and hold it there for a split second, then come back down with it. Just different ways to do it to make the fish react, and I'm constantly changing that.
Do you ever let there be slack line, or do you try to follow it down?
I follow it down, not too fast. I want to let that fish see my bait for one, and you don't have to be super slow at it, just as long as you have contact with it. And yeah, slack is probably a no-no out there. You don't want to do that. Obviously, you're not going to feel them bite. You want to get them when they're first biting, right?
Yeah, you don't give them a chance.
No, not at all.
I know when I was out there pre-fishing for a tournament, we jig fished for probably 3 days before the tournament, and we're trying different places out. We had Steve Howe, another friend of ours, was with us, and going along out there. And Steve and Jim both grew up on the river. They they're used to it. They got all the techniques down. And it's not like I had never jig fished before. It's just a different thing. And you kind of got to get a feel for it. And you feel that bite once, you set the hook. You don't give them a lot of time. But one of the things I noticed is like probably 80% of the fish are caught with that stinger hook, and a lot of times the stinger hook's in the side of the head and everything else. You're foul hooking a lot of them because basically they're following that bait down. They're trapping it on the bottom, and when you go to lift your rod for make the next jigging motion, you'll feel it. So you just drive the hooks home and hope for the best. Well, I was like, there's got to be a way to get these fish to like actually inhale that bait. So I was experimenting with a 3/4 ounce hair jig, and what I would do is I would kind of snap it up off the bottom, and I would return my rod tip. I'd basically let it free fall back down, but I would stop my rod tip to where I estimated I'd be like 2 or 3 inches off the bottom when it hit. And sometimes you'd miss it because the bottom's going up and down, sometimes not. And I actually got to the point where I started hauling some fish in. And what was amazing, I started catching a lot of them with the actual hook on the jig, and they were actually inhaling it. So I think the key to the cadence thing is just keep changing and trying different things, and you'll find something that works, and try to have everybody on the boat doing something different until you figure out what it is. Fishing's fishing. It's always trying different things and pay attention to what works and try to match it again. So, Jim, the Detroit River, it's a navigation channel. There's a lot of shipping going on out there, and it's just a different place than a lot of guys have been out in the lake and maybe small lakes. So what are some of the safety concerns out there as far as traveling? What do you got going on out there?
I'd
Anything to
say
watch for? Things to watch for.
my number one thing to watch is this time of year fishing. Watch out for boats that are fishing, because there's spots all over the river where these guys are fishing. There's going to be small boats. There's going to be John boats. There's going to be just be courteous to the guys in the smaller boats. That's number one. And then I'd say number two, I don't know, pick up a map, kind of study it, find out where you're going to launch from. But there are some areas around some of the islands out there that are real big areas that are shallow, rocky areas that you're going to want to stay away from.
The shipping channel is pretty well marked. There's humongous ships hauling coal and iron ore and everything else going up and down that river, and it's well marked because it's well used. How close can you get to one of those big, gigantic freighters? They're a bit of a hazard themselves, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to be too close. I've been close. They're usually in areas where the guys are fishing. They're usually gonna honk. They give you the five honk salute, and that means everybody just get out of the way. And if, you don't follow that, Godspeed.
Yeah. Those things will kick up with 3 or 4 foot weight behind them easily.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to be clear of them. There are some no wake zones too around some of them bridges, right?
Yep. There's 2 bridges that go over to the island of Grozio, which is a small city on an island, a community over there. There'll be I guess in Trenton, out of Elizabeth Park is one of the places you could launch. There's a green bridge there. That's what we call a free bridge. That's no wake all the way around that. Just south of that bridge, there's a marina there. Be aware that that's all no wake too. So give yourself distance from that.
Are those well marked?
You can see the signs, I guess, towards the center of the bridge. There's signs. Let's see, and I know there's one sign off the south end more of the marina, but I mean those are 1,000-foot marks. You wear that.
What about? I've heard you guys talk about the Miracle Mile. What's that?
When getting into the Detroit area, the river will kind of narrow down. See the tall buildings, the casino in Windsor. You'll get actual waves from boat traffic, and even when the wind kicks up, it'll do a double bounce off the shore. So have them come out, it'll bounce off the shore, and in certain instances when it's real windy, like a south wind blows up, that area there can get pretty hairy through there, and you're gonna have to pay attention and make sure you don't have a boat fit enough for that. You don't make that run up there.
Yeah.
That's a definite.
That's the one thing I can say about going to the Detroit River. As long as you can trailer your boat, odds are you're going to be able to fish. And I mean, unless you have 40-mile-an-hour winds, and there's a lot of protected water because there are a lot of islands and what have you to go around, bays, what have you. So you're going to be able to fish. You might not be able to get where you want to go, but it's not going to be travel out there for nothing. So if I'm coming out there for the first time and I got a boat, I'm fishing Erie or fishing some of the small lakes around, what's some of the basic needs on your boat as far as, say, like electronics?
Oh, basic sonar. You don't need nothing fancy. Just something.
I agree. Most of those fish are going to be right down on tight to the bottom, and a lot of times you're not going to be able to see the fish unless you're looking at through like down scan or side scan because they're so tight to the bottom, forward facing and that kind of stuff. I mean, it probably has a use, but for the average guy, it's probably not going to gain you that much out there.
And I'll also say a mapping unit that's going to show you where the Canadian line is, because it will come straight down the river, and there's no excuses when you're over it. I mean, them guys over there, you're over it, they're checking you, and if you don't buy a Canadian license, which I don't know, I think it's a good thing to have. I mean, I live here, so I'm out here more. You can get, I think, a 3-day license. I'm not sure the cost. It helps. There's a lot of spots over there, and there's you can get get it in and out of the wind that way too. I mean, there's different things, but yeah, you want to know where you're at all times, and no live bait over there. So make sure your minnows are dead, or
Yeah.
freeze them if you're going to go across the border, or somehow kill them. Make sure, if you want to be legal, to drain your live wells. If there's a DNR officer at the boat launch, and you come in with a live well that's got water in it, and your fish are in it, drain your live well before water. 'Cause they don't want any water transfer, don't want any minnow or live bait transfer.
Yeah, we've kind of failed to mention that in the beginning. That the Detroit River is actually split, the length of it, half of it's U.S. waters and half of it's Canadian waters. So you really got to pay attention to where you're at on there. Most GPS units show the Canadian line. It's easy to stay away from it. But as Jim said, it's you're cutting your fishing in half, but if you don't have your Canadian license, it's easy to get. You can get it online. The river's a little bit different than, especially for the guys that fish over here in like Central or Eastern Basin, Lake Erie, where we usually don't have to be concerned about water clarity. Over on the Western Basin and the Detroit River, their water clarity means a lot. Lake Sinclair can get really kicked up and churned up, and the river can too. And drainage coming in from different places can might mud half the river up, but the other half isn't. So if you have a license for both sides, it's a lot easier to find places to go fishing.
Hey, Mike, you can also find your satellite views before you go out, or the days before you go out. If you can get a good view of, zoom in on Lake St. Clair, and then find out what wind direction you're going to have, and you can see where that mud line is, or sometimes it'll clear up. You won't have any mud line. So it's a good tool to have. I think there's a spot you want to fish, and it's got dirty water, but you see blue water, whatever. Dude, a couple hours, it could change altogether. That happened to me yesterday.
Since most of our audience is from Pennsylvania, we're going to be coming in from the southeast. What are a couple good launch ramps that would be accessible to our guys coming in from Pennsylvania, Ohio?
I'll suggest first Lake Erie Metro Park, which is right in between. It's actually, I think, in Lake Erie, but you'd make a north turn, and the river's all open.
It's a nice ramp. Do you have to pay to launch at those sites, most of them?
Yeah. Yep. You're going to have to.
I know you go out of a private launch too, and you want to watch. There's a lot of private launches out there. A lot of different areas have different bergs, have their own launch sites, and you have to pay, to go into those. And you don't want to be launching out of one of those, or you could get towed or what have you.
They'll have you.
Yeah. So pay attention to the signs. You're not at home anymore. Pay attention to the signs, and you'll have no problem. So, bait shops. If you can go out there. I don't have some basic needs or something. You got a couple bait shops you'd recommend out there, or I could go pick up some of the baits or whatever if I get out there and need something.
Basically, across from the Metro Park launch, the Lake Erie Metro Park launch, they'll have there's a bait store right before the entrance, basic south. That's called the bottom line. Work your way up towards the Elizabeth Park area. There's a good little called the bait store. Just a small place, but they'll have a lot of different things in there for you too. And then when you work your way up towards Wyandotte Boat Ramp, they have a bait store right at the ramp.
I know there's a big shop out there that does a lot of reports, and it's a good one to check with, and they'll know like all the water clarities, and they have a lot of stuff. What's the name of that place out there?
The Dip Net?
Yeah, that's it.
Check them out on Facebook too. They sell a lot of lipstick lures and scent that I like to use. There's other companies. I'm sure they carry the Angler's Quest jigs, along with other brand jigs. That store is literally packed with stuff. You go in there and you just get information. It's a great store to go into. So
you go out there, and if you don't have the right thing, it's not like you're in some remote area. You can 10-minute drive from wherever you're at on the river. You can go find some new baits or whatever, and get yourself stocked up That's another thing. Because you're in a metropolitan area there. It's not hard to find places to go out to eat and places to go stay. A little bit of time on the internet, you can find some place really easy to get to, and a lot of it's not right downtown. Detroit. It's on the suburbs, and it's a nice place to go. Now, I'm going to say if you're looking for some scenic place to fish, that might not be too scenic if you don't like looking at steel mills, but it's definitely that's where the Industrial Revolution happened at. So it's kind of neat to see this great fishery right in the middle of a downtown area. It's pretty cool. So I don't want to take up much more of your time, but did we miss anything that you can think of?
Be safe out there. Make sure your stuff's working good before you go.
With the safety equipment, you need the same safety equipment on the Detroit River that you need on Lake Erie, correct? As far as flares go and stuff, yes. Yeah, I would say if you're looking for a trip to go on, if you're the guy that spends all of his time trolling in the summertime over in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and you're looking for something different to do where you got rod in hand and you're going to feel the bite and chance to catch a lot of fish, and if you're there at the right time and the right things, you might, catch some of the big pre-spawn females and catch some really big fish. But typically, you're gonna catch a lot of good eating size fish, and it's a really cool place to go if you've never been there. And for the average guy, it really doesn't take a whole lot. You probably have everything you need to do it. One of the things I kind of to go with that is, going out there during the week is a lot less crowded. If you want to, try to maybe your first trip, it might not hurt to go out there on a, Tuesday, Wednesday and save yourself a little bit of boat traffic. You're still going to see lots of boats, but it's not going to be quite as bad. And if you're going for, if you go out there Saturday morning for the first time, you might be in for a little bit of a shocker what you're going to see at the boat ramps.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is being recorded April 8th of 2026, and the season's just getting kicked off right now. So it'll be on, fishing will be good for probably about another month over there. It'll string on, but the prime time's basically through April, so get out here, give it a try.
Yeah. Yeah, you get disappointed fish-wise. It's the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. So I'd say 2 weeks, we get a little bit more warmer weather, be good to go.
Yeah. So, Jim, I appreciate your time, and can't wait to get out there. Hope I'm going to get out there sometime this spring with you. And
for sure.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Yeah, everybody be safe out there.
Mike here with a faith thought. It's been a long winter. We're all ready to get out on the water. Spent weeks getting our boats ready and adding new gear to them and cleaning them and organizing stuff. Don't let the excitement and the anticipation and getting out there for the first time of the year, don't let that all be stifled by the long lines at the launch ramps and bait shops. There's always going to be that guy who just has bad luck and he's going to back his boat down into the ramp and his buddies are going to pull away and his boat's not going to start. And you're going to have to cut back in line and pull his boat out and slow everything down. Or, there's always that guy that somebody not from the area just doesn't know the launch ramp etiquette. I see it two ways. You can either avoid those high traffic times or just embrace them. I fish out of Walnut Creek Access. It's known for being one of the busiest launch ramps in Pennsylvania. And probably one of the most confusing ones. The traffic patterns there aren't normal to what most launch ramps are. And if you show up there on 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday in July, you better have some patience. I can say I've been on the both sides of the patience pendulum there. The one thing I can tell you for sure, the days when patience prevail are much better than the days when they don't. Like the days I'll take the time while we're waiting in line to maybe walk up to the truck in front of us and strike up a conversation with the guys in it and talk fishing, or there's always somebody there that's by themselves and they need somebody to hold their boat for them while they go park the truck. Those days when you help out and you embrace the lines, they just tend to go a lot better than the days they don't. When I let the things at the launch ramp get under my skin, sometimes I'm spitting nails until I get out to where I'm fishing, and just not how you want to start out a trip. You know, guys, it's fishing. It's supposed to be fun. Let those lines be a part of the adventure. Romans 8:25 says this: "Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love." Until we meet again, may your nets be full and your adventures be great.
Hunting, fishing, loving every day. That's a prayer that a country boy prays. Thank God he made me this way. Hunting, fishing, loving every day. Early in the morning, late in the evening, I'm getting red dirt rich, Flint River paid. Hunting, fishing, loving every day.